my background is in experimental composition. I've kind of trained myself to think of every element of music as having a reason or a purpose to be there, and creating a rule set that if I follow that rule set, I know that I'm being consistent to why I'm writing it. And all I have to do is wait until the point where I have something I like so much that I can't throw it away. I have to continue down that road. It's actually been an interesting path moving from Ether through to The Occupation through to Conway. Ether was very musically driven. Ether was about journeying to try and reach a moment of clarity. I use very, very basic rudimentary ideas, like you are climbing, trying to reach a moment of clarity, and then the patient relapses and quickly plummets down to a depth and has to build up again. And the main melody, it's ding 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 ding, which is just up, down, and it's a very basic. With The Occupation, there's close to zero fake sound in that game. You play a lot of games, and the sounds in them are just, big spaceship drones that just, like take over the scene, and there's always sound playing from somewhere, whether there's something making it or not. The Occupation, everything was diegetic. The hums from lights or from music from a radio. There's a cigarette machine that's got something happening with it. Drinks machines, toilets that are dripping. Every single sound was diegetic, and there wasn't as much space for music. Even the music itself was sound based. I just had a little baby girl at the time of making the game, and I was just inspired by everything that was around me. And this is a little tidbit for anyone who likes the game. The noise when you're in and out of bounds area, and the guard comes into the same area, and it very Terminator-y kind of sound. It's actually a breast pump for milk. It's just the noise of it. I used to go, God, Terminator's in the room, and it was this joke that the Terminator was here whenever that was happening. I was like, I have to record that. And it's pitched down and stretched, but that is actually part of that game. So your everyday life just makes it into the soundtrack somehow, and everybody else has to deal with it, whether they know it or not. The rule set that I used for this game was that the threat of the world, the perp, the person who's kidnapped this girl, is represented as a dark, brooding, deep layer that underlies everything. Is almost the substrate of it's the reason the world exists. Without this event that's happened, Robert Conway doesn't have a reason to investigate. Catherine Conway doesn't have a reason to investigate with the police. They don't ever have a reason to collide over the matter. So the perpetrator is the root of everything. And instead of having several root notes that shift and give context to all the music above, it's a consistent, low grounding to all of the, not all of the melodies, but the Conway themes specifically. When the threat is there, that's what the threat is based out of. Robert and Catherine, they, throughout the game, the bulk of the story is for Robert to achieve what he has to achieve to find this young missing girl. He risks betraying the trust of his own daughter. So to find somebody else's daughter, he risks losing his own. So the pull of the game is the closer you get to one, the further you get away from the other. So Robert, because he's older, is the lower of the piano themes, and Catherine is the higher of the piano themes. And because Conway is always getting closer to the truth, there's a dum 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 dum. It's just a climb. It's just a climb closer to the truth. And because Catherine is getting pushed further away, she is dun 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 dun. She's a descent, basically. The higher he goes, the closer he gets, the further he pushes her away. But what I wanted to do is have hope that he might not, like, if there's hope that he's going to find this girl, there's hope that he might not throw away the relationship with his own daughter. So in fact, as his melody goes ding 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 ding, hers goes ding 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 ding. So the last note climbs one extra, as in to say, there's hope at the end. Those over that low brooding bass is where the majority of that Conway theme comes from, and the rest of the game is using similar types of rules. Like notes might climb and then fall back one, and it's literally a case of I'm taking 2 steps forward, but if I'm actually not looking at the right person, I take 1 step back because I'm not on the right track. Charlotte May, the missing girl, she's represented again with a rule set. And in the music, whenever Conway's close to finding her, or feels like he's close to finding her, or wherever there's a scene where it's about very, very close to Charlotte May, I had this idea that if Charlotte May is so young, she hasn't had chance to live. She doesn't know life yet. She has no experience. She's 8 years old. So what if I took 8% of a sound that existed? Like if I played something like a very childlike sound, like a piccolo flute, something high pitched and something, with a lot of youth to it. What if I took a violin and I took the first 8% of that, or thereabouts, chopped off the rest of that sound, and I go, I have this fleeting, like if I play it, for example, if you do that with staccato sound, which is such a brief sound anyway, you end up with, and it's this minuscule fraction of the life of that sound. And then I stretch that sound and stretch it and pull it apart. And then all of the textures that were in that little fraction of time, when you stretch that to be about 5, 6, 10 seconds long, suddenly there's loads of nuances and detail in that sound that stretch out. And I normally add a tiny amount of reverb and delay, and that sound echoes out like a scream. And because it's high pitch, it sounds like a wailing scream. which is quite harrowing, and I used that to represent Charlotte May. And it wasn't, that's what I'm going to do, therefore I'll find sounds. I was playing with sounds that I liked, and then I had the idea, and I was like, well, what if? And chopped it off, and I was like, okay, it sounds so good on that sound, let's try it across the board. And there are sounds that just sound absolutely rubbish, so it ends up being a hunt for those sounds that sound youthful and lend themselves to becoming these screams. And that's how I tackled the Charlotte May elements in the theme. When the narrative of the game was being talked about in a high level structure, it was me and Pete sat there with cards in front of us, like, which beats come where, what days are where, when does the girl get taken, when does X happen, and it's all structured and written, and the story has to be there for me to then have that idea to do something with the music in that respect. So in terms of like collaboration, like I can't have any of those ideas until that solid base is there as to what the story is, and that's collaborative. And then we settled on a theme that was very, very 50s for a long while, and it stayed in the game for probably 8 or 9 months. But I was aware as it was in the game that it was music that I thought sounded good, as opposed to music that had to be there. And it was whilst I was actually writing music for another level, whilst the game was in a really good place and we knew what the story was and we knew why we were there, that's when there was space to go, I've had this idea, and then retroactively go back and say, well, that doesn't work in the beginning now. This has to be there. Because if I've said that the perpetrator has this musical base, when I first see that person, that has to be playing, otherwise I'm not establishing that. So went through and basically rewrote most of it again. Luckily it was in a place where not everything was written, so there was space to do that, and everybody at every step of the way has a chance to say whether they like the music, whether they don't, whether they feel like it works, or even just to say a lot of the time whether music exists in a scene. Like, that's up for everybody. When we do play tests, it's this scene feels a little empty. Should we have music here? Should there be a build? Are we establishing like the scene? Like, should we have stings playing here and there, even just to establish the scene? So, quicker answer: yes, it's me who comes up with those ideas and who tries them out. But it's still up for everybody else to like them enough to keep them and to see why they work. There is a favorite piece of music, and at the moment it's called the Uncertainty theme. And I think the reason I like it so much, I can't go into too much detail without spoiling certain things, but I'll say that Conway's theme is so definite. Conway is the climbing element, and Catherine is the descending element with hope, like I've spoken about. And there's a certain point in the game where I want to strip away any idea that everything is just perfect, or everything is set in stone, or that I know where I'm going. Like, I am the guy trying to find this thing, and I wanted to create uncertainty. So I had certain rules that I'd already established with the main theme. So I took those rules, like play 4 notes, ding, 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 ding. I said, well, let's break the order. I can now play those 4 notes in any order I want. So ding, 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 ding. While Catherine's are still uncertain for reasons I won't get into story-wise, and now hers can jump wildly and follow any rule they want because they're uncertain. And I got to just literally pull apart the theme and play random notes and some of the harmonies that I came up with. This is why I like it. Okay, this is going to tell you the root of why I like it, because I got to surprise myself. I got to play something and go, oh, that's beautiful. I would never have written that if I was just thinking of it. If it was in my head, I would have never written it. But because I had a rule, I'm going to strip it all apart and play anything. I got to surprise myself. And it's always fun when you get to listen back to something that you've done as if it's something somebody else has done. For that reason, that part of the game and that part of the score for me, just I get to listen to it, and I can't remember what the melody does because it's so chopped up and random that I get to listen to it and I get to enjoy it like somebody else might. And I think that's my favorite, and that's why it's my favorite. And it sounds nice, obviously.